Hey everyone, it's Michael. Today I'm going to be doing my first video game review for Goosebumps in general, because of course my channel is a Goosebumps focused channel. This is the shirt my fiance made me. I always talk about it with people. I constantly try to wear it. I love this shirt. It's so well made. But anyway, Goosebumps HorrorLand for the PlayStation 2. I had never played this before. At one point I tried to watch a walkthrough, maybe a year ago, something like that, because I wanted to catch up on some Goosebumps stuff, and I had never seen this game or the 3DS game or anything like that. And recently I was like, I really think that I should go ahead and get this, since I'm trying to collect and review and read and watch and whatever, play in this case, the different Goosebumps media out there. Probably never the computer games like the PC type games, because I'm terrible at video games as it is, and the PC is even more horrific to try to learn. For people like myself who did not grow up on that. This generation can do it. People like myself that are close to 25 that did not grow up on it, nope. It's impossible. Anyway, Goosebumps HorrorLand, what is this? PlayStation 2, which is possibly my favorite console of all time. I'm a big 360 guy. I love the 360. But then the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 were mainly what I grew up with when I was a kid. I talked about this recently a little bit on my update video that I posted earlier today or yesterday. Yesterday, because it's like 2 o'clock in the morning right now. But anyway, I had a great time playing this. Just so you know, as a heads up for my review, I'm terrible at video games nowadays. If it's not a first-person shooter where all I have to do is shoot and kill things, if it gets as complicated as something like Fallout 3 or anything like that, some of the puzzles in Silent Hill games, the Resident Evil games after like number 3 and after Code Veronica, literally anything after those, I become terrible at and I don't even try. Like I end up going and looking at a walkthrough and watching the rest of the game be played. And I really had fun playing this, but I had to get to a walkthrough at one point because there was one last area in the theme park that I had to get to. And it said I needed like 50 of these fright token things, which are basically little skulls. And if you do the least amount of work, you typically get a bronze if you manage to earn to that. If you do the medium good amount of work, you get a silver, which is like second place if you're doing like a race, for example. If you do the very best and pass whatever the goal is, you can get a golden fright coin thing. I'm terrible. This one last area needed 50 tokens to try to get into it, and I couldn't do it. I think I was at like 39 or 38. Some of these minigames, man, are so freaking hard. I mean, absolutely freaking hard. So I did have to watch a walkthrough. I want to go ahead and throw her name out here. I think it's a girl. Wishing Tykel. It looks like it's wishing to kill, but it's not. Tykel is spelled T-I-K-A-L. I have it on my TV because I watched it on my television as if I was playing the game. How sad is that? Anyway, I had a really fun time playing this. For anybody who doesn't know what the plot is, of course, this takes place in the very famous Goosebumps R.L. Stine book series land called HorrorLand. And it's not really a land, it's a theme park that kind of pops up here and there throughout the entire world. And I've read the books. I enjoy the books a lot. Not the main series, because this came out in like 2008. I'm still working on that book series. I think I'm on book 3 right now, as a matter of fact, Monster Blood for Breakfast. Working my way through the Horrorland era of Goosebumps, if you will, that came out around 2008 or so and worked its way out of that. But anyway, this particular game is not tied into that. It's just kind of a standalone property, but it's fun. It's really fun. It gets a little repetitive at times, but it's really fun. Basically, you're just hanging out in a theme park. What happened to get you to that theme park is that you were just at your house and your friend, best friend, whatever, was at his house, and you just hear a knock at your door, or your doorbell ring or whatever. You come outside and you happen to see this ticket to a place called HorrorLand sitting out in front of your house on your stoop. And you happen to look, it looks like a green monster is walking away, which we Goosebumps fans know as a horror icon, basically. They are people who work in the park. They're not really people, though. They're actually monster creature type things that everyone in the world kind of assumes is wearing like a costume, right? Kind of like at Disneyland. HorrorLand is kind of like the scary version of Disneyland in the best possible ways. I had so much fun playing this, and I really enjoyed the fact that it was on PlayStation 2. I'm thankful and blessed that I own a PlayStation 2 still. I have the slim one. I had to get rid of my old one back in the day because it stopped working, basically. But the slim one that I have worked very well. The game is not perfect by any means. It's very sloppy, and it's very messy, even for a 2008 release. 2008, I would argue, is around the time when people stopped caring about what they released on the PlayStation 2. I think just after that was when we started getting things like Silent Hill Shattered Memories to the PlayStation 2, like ported to it, maybe. Somewhere around there, like 2010 or so, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but I think I remember it being like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The game itself, like I said, you end up going with your best friend to HorrorLand, your mom or whoever drops you off out there, and you're pretty much stuck. And literally, as soon as you walk in, a giant, like, metal cage door thing you see in medieval movies like Robin Hood and stuff slams down and locks you in, and you're stuck in the park. You have to find a way to escape, which is typically the plot for every Goosebumps HorrorLand thing ever. And it's fun. You have to do games and ride rides and all kinds of stuff. And it has some classical stuff while also having some newer type stuff that they designed for this game that I thought were fun. And then they have riffs on certain things like a shoot 'em up, like arcade system type game. You know the games I'm talking about, like where you have a little targeting crosshair on the screen of like a CC's Pizza type, you know, video game console thing you'd play in an arcade. And you like aim the big old gun model and stuff where you're trying to take out like zombies and House of the Dead and stuff like that, you know. They have kind of riffs on things like that in the game. They have a lot of golf stuff, you know, like putt-putt golf, which I love because I love putt-putt and I love like mini golf and stuff. So that was totally up my alley. There was like 2 different areas that had that stuff. You had a big area focused, it was called Vampire Village. It was mainly focused on the vampire, I believe it was from Vampire Breath, that guy, Count Orlok or whatever he's supposed to be called. I can't remember what he's called in the Goosebumps world. The riff on Nosferatu is basically what it is. It looks identical to Nosferatu. The game itself was so much fun. Again, it's not perfect. The control scheme is awful. It's awful. I don't know about the Wii. I don't know about the DS version. I want to get the DS version just because I love the Nintendo DS, but I've already played the game. It looks like a very low quality version of the PlayStation 2 version. I don't know about the Wii game though. The Wii game couldn't look possibly much better than the PlayStation 2 game. But for here, the control scheme is horrible. I mean, it looks like it's actually built for the Wii, in my opinion. Very much like Shattered Memories. The control scheme just does not work well on PlayStation 2. So, for example, let's say that you are doing... What's a great example? What's a great idea of a minigame that you play here that would be an issue? Well, like, for example, they have a minigame in here where you're standing on a log, a giant log, basically, and you have to essentially try to stay on top of the log by moving your little joysticks in a certain direction, right? That's one thing with the problem with some of the later PlayStation 2 games before they stopped making anything for the PlayStation 2. They would try to utilize on crappier games, and this is one of those games I can consider kind of a crappier quality game, but it's a fun Goosebumps game. If you're a fan of Goosebumps, you're going to find so many cool cameos in here, and not your basic cameos like Slappy and stuff. You're going to find really cool stuff in here. Things from the books, all of the different series, like the old classic books, the Give Yourself Goosebumps books, all that stuff, Series 2000 stuff. Really cool stuff thrown in here. I had a great time. I had a blast. If you're a Goosebumps fan, like I said, you'll have a blast with the game. It's totally worth every cent you spend on it. But there's the log ride where you have to stay on top of the log, and it seems like it'd be a lot easier. Same thing with the shooting games. It'd be a lot easier to play these on like the Wii, for example. It becomes a challenge sometimes. Then you have games like the bumper cars that you think would be easier to play on a PlayStation 2 than compared to like a Wii, or for example. And it's not. The bumper cars game is impossible. And throughout the game you can collect these little monster cards that are basically the book covers of different Goosebumps books with like a little type of factoid written on the back that are kind of funny and kind of cool. The game does have some humor in it. And those monster cards are kind of nice. I don't plan on collecting all of them because some of the challenges are absolutely impossible. Like, for example, playing bumper cars and not taking any damage at all. I don't think any person on this planet could play this game and manage to not get that managed to not get damage in the bumper cars arcade game thing. It's impossible, frankly. I tried very hard and I couldn't do it. There's a lot of these games that I could not get the golden medal on, or the golden fright coin or whatever. I would get up to silver on pretty much every single game. And then you have one game that I thought was actually kind of fun. You had like a giant arrow on top of your head and a helmet and stuff. It reminded me of like the Nickelodeon Slime Time type of stuff, where you would basically have to run down like a row thing, like on a red carpet almost, and then at a certain point in running, the camera would shift sideways watching you run from the side, like across the screen, and then when you get to a certain area, you'd have to hit a button and jump, and you jump onto like a trampoline type thing, and you go flying onto basically a giant Wheel of Fortune thing, and it's basically the play from the old, I think it was the first Escape from the Carnival of Horrors book from Give Yourself Goosebumps, which is the first book of that whole series. It's either that one or Escape or Return to the Carnival of Horrors book, where they have the Wheel of Misfortune, and that's what this was. They had the Wheel of Misfortune in here, which I thought was a really cool little cameo that nobody talks about. But this was really fun. They had a lot of cool riffs on games and stuff. Again, some of it could have been a lot better on other consoles. Even the DS, I think, could have been easier to play some of these games on compared to what's on the PlayStation 2. It's a little tricky, man. But the voice acting, oh my god, it's horrible. The voice acting is embarrassing. You talk about games like Deadly Premonition, right? Which is like one of my favorite games ever. You talk about games like Deadly Premonition having horrible voice acting and being just absolutely out there, like Twin Peaks style weird stuff. And then you have games like this that are fun kids games and kind of creepy in some instances, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But the voice acting is horrendous. The only people that are actually good are the people who, or the person who plays the horrors, you know, in the park, the people that you talk to, the big monster creature things. And then you also have, who else was it that I actually really enjoyed? It was somebody else that I really enjoyed as well that was pretty good. But the kids, like the main character you play as, whether it be a boy or a girl that you pick, is horrendous. You know, the best friend is terrible. It's pretty bad. Now, there are certain games in here, like for example, the Carnival of Horrors, I mentioned those. They actually have a particular ride on, I think, either that area or the next area you go to, that's like the second area of the game, called the Roller Coaster, of course, based on the roller coaster words. And that particular roller coaster I was really let down by, because it's not like in the books where you have like a roller coaster that rolls for like all of eternity all over the park, and there are people that are ghosts that basically died, and you're in the front row and everybody behind you has died many years, hundreds of years before you, and they're just ghosts and they're trying to tell you to take this turn or that turn and stuff, and you have control over it like in the book. I believe that was in the first book of the Give Yourself Goosebumps series, Escape from the Carnival of Horrors. But it was such a cool ride. It was so much fun in that book. And here, it's completely different. It's your basic roller coaster thing, but then it gets real hardcore, right? Because you have to save this little girl that's trapped in the roller coaster. But it gets real bad, because it, like, this is an area of the game where I would say if you have a problem with motion sickness, which I typically don't. I've only had 3 instances in my life of having motion sickness from a video game or a movie, and this is one of them. This is a great example of something that I could easily see somebody having like an epileptic seizure to, whether that's common with them or not, because it's so insane and so colorful and everything. One second you're going down a giant swirling green and black tunnel, the very next second you're shooting like baseballs and stuff at that Dracula vampire thing coming towards you, the Nosferatu ripoff. And speaking of that, let's talk about some of the scarier aspects of the game. I didn't expect it to be creepy in any regard, mainly because it's a Goosebumps kids game. I mean, it's rated E10 plus, you know, E10 and up, if you want to call it that. That's what EA used to say. I just threw the game by accident. Sorry. I love the game. I really do. I really enjoy this as a Goosebumps fan more than an actual gamer, because I'm not a big gamer anymore. Like I said, my area is like FPS stuff and like fixed camera angle games like Silent Hill, for example, and the original Resident Evil games. That's my area of like video games and stuff, Doom, you know, stuff like that. This is not so much. But this had that cool like Silent Hill kind of roaming feature type of thing to it. It didn't have necessarily fixed camera angles, but they would like kind of stay up really high in the sky most of the time. Not super high like Zoo Tycoon or anything like that, but like in an area where it would follow you around the park, but in a weird way. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's basically like the Silent Hill fixed camera angles. They just don't switch around all the time. It just basically floats and follows you. I love every area of the theme park. I think the most generic, in my opinion, is probably the Mad Libs area, which is more the science fiction type thing. It gets a little bland with the sci-fi aspect to it, but it's a fun Goosebumps thing, so I can get over that. It's fine. Goosebumps is always riffing on other stuff, like 50s and 60s concepts. I want to talk about all my biggest highlights for the game, you know what I mean? But not like in a spoilerific way. I just want to talk about things that might entice you to want to get a PlayStation 2 or get this game for PlayStation 2 if you already have a PlayStation 2 or a Wii or a DS or anything like that. Because I enjoy it. Like I said, if you're a Goosebumps fan, this whole channel is based around Goosebumps. I think you'll dig this. I think it's a really fun time. But moving along, like I was saying, the scarier aspects. Vampire Village is one thing that I've already mentioned a little bit of. And that particular area has a game where you're basically sitting in the dark. I think it was called like Fright Light or Flash Fright or something like that. Flashlight, essentially. And you're basically in the dark in a giant scary mansion like a stormy night with the scariest freaking music ever, right? Like some of the scariest music I've ever heard in a Goosebumps property, movie, TV, anything. And you're in the dark and you can see some people walking towards you, and they're basically that Count Orlok, Nosferatu ripoff thing, creeping in the dark. And now you have to use your left joystick and you move it up and down really fast as you possibly can, to recharge your batteries. And then you have to hit like 2 other buttons to try to turn the flashlight on. And you can hit a couple of vampires at the same time, maybe 3 if you're best at it. You have to hit them to try to get them back off, and then you have to hold it down really on them to try to get them to basically explode with light. And that can be tricky because it also drains your battery. That minigame is not difficult by any means. It's probably the easiest game in the entire game. And yet it genuinely, I got chills playing it. It is just a creepy game. The music and everything, it is so effective. And I kind of wish in some aspects that we had a lot more of that. But the Vampire Village in general, that's based around the vampire stuff and has a lot of little things like that, it looks like it's based entirely around like a Tim Burton style Sleepy Hollow, Nightmare Before Christmas type thing. One of my favorite features in the game, and this comes up a lot, there's like a mummy hand, for example, like a skeleton's arm on the ground, or you might see like a snake sticking out of the ground or something. But this one was a tree, right, when you'd walk around. It's the first time you ever encountered this in the game as far as I remember. You might walk by a tree that's really crooked, and like I said, very Tim Burton Gothic-esque. It's probably my favorite area of the entire game. And when you're walking by, the tree just all of a sudden will just, it'll be standing up like this, and then like it's gonna grab you, right? Terrifying. Made me jump the first time I saw it. There's no sound effect. There's nothing. Just the atmosphere of being outside, seeing some people wandering around saying some weird things like, why won't they let me leave? And just creepy things. You don't hear them say it, but when you walk up and you talk to them, the little letters come up at the bottom of the screen saying things like that. But that tree, man, that tree got me, and I still kind of flinched as I would play the game and that would happen, or I'd be too close and it'd be right at the camera and I wouldn't even know it was there, and I'd get too close and the whole camera would just be covered up with these terrifying branches just like over the screen like this. Genuinely creeped me out sometimes. But like I said, the game has some fun games, little mini-game type things. It's mainly a game focused around mini-games, but some of the biggest highlights of what I thought could be really great here, like the Ghost Train, for example, you can't access it as far as I know. I don't know if you can unlock that when you beat the game or what. I don't think anybody has any footage of playing that online as far as I know. I thought it'd be something like the Bully game from Rockstar from way back in the day, which is a great game by the way too. I thought it'd be something like that where you'd have to play and play and play and then eventually unlock that because you've got a certain skill or something, or you beat the game a couple of times. I don't know. Silent Hill did that a couple of times too. I thought it would be something like that, but I don't think it is, and I'm kind of bummed out about that. There was another one that was like a teacup thing. It was a play on that one Disneyland ride, and the ride you kind of see at county fairs and stuff a lot, where it spins around, you have like the circular little cup type things, like the teacups are what they look like in Disneyland. And you sit in them, and they spin around, and you can twist the little plate in the middle of the seats, and it'll make you spin even more, you know? I was hoping that would be accessible at some point, because it's basically like a plate and then dishes with skulls on them, and I thought it'd be awesome, and you didn't get to play it. So I'm kind of bummed about stuff like that. The ending has a plot twist, typically like every Goosebumps book and movie you could ever see, every TV episode, all those things. It has a plot twist, and it's kind of a different, neat plot twist that I didn't see coming until somebody spoiled it for me on the internet in a walkthrough I was reading to try to help me out before I finally gave up and realized how terrible I am at video games, especially even this children's game I'm terrible at. Anyway, I blame it on more bad design than me in this case, but still, I won't get into that. It was really just a fun time. You know, I know this is a longer, lengthier review, but I thought it was worthwhile. Now, I want to talk about my favorite thing in the game, aside from Vampire Village. I think the music is good, by the way. My favorite thing in here is one particular scenario, and I don't want to ruin it too much where I won't spoil anything surrounding this part of the game. There's not really much to spoil. Most of the game is just you escaping and you playing games, little mini games throughout this game. There is a time when you have to go to a mask seller person. It's one of the horrors that run the park that is selling masks, right? And the stand's kind of creepy. It has like a kid's face being held by a horror. Like it's a mask, but it's not. It's not like it's holding a child's head. It's like its face, right? Eyes and all. Terrifying. Apparently this person sells masks. At one point you have to put a mask of a horror on to get into a restricted area that only horrors can actually access in the area, or in the theme park. And when you put the mask on, it starts attaching itself to your face and stuff, just like in the Haunted Mask book and series stuff. And you can't get it off, and then your whole body turns into a horror. And then you have to kind of sneak around like that a little bit. That was so cool. It was such a cool reference, a cool cameo of the Haunted Mask. I did not expect to see that in here. I was shocked when that was in here. I was having such a great time, man. And I kind of hoped that would be a feature you could keep throughout the game, but it wasn't. You know, I know that's sort of a spoiler to that, but that was so cool. That was so much fun as a Haunted Mask reference. Again, the game is chock full of stuff like that. A lot of references, little small references to so many things throughout Goosebumps book series since the 90s. I had a really fun time. I really recommend it. I would not be surprised if R.L. Stine himself had a little bit of say-so and help here and there for these folks and telling them, like, hey, there's this and this and this for my books. It came across like that to me. It felt like R.L. Stine. A lot of the humor in here felt like something R.L. Stine would put in his books. So that was cool to me. Like I said, as bad as the acting is, as bad as the freaking control scheme is, it wasn't a complete miss. If you can get used to some of the stuff, like for example, there's one of the best games ever, Scorpion Speedway. Yeah, it's another racing game in the middle of a PlayStation 2 game, but it was so much fun. If you can deal with a lot of the bad control scheme stuff and the bad acting, you can have a great time with stuff like that. And the putt-putt stuff, if you're a person that likes stuff like that, you'll love that too. If you're a minigame person in general, I think you'll have fun with the game. And I wish we had more Goosebumps video games. I think there's only like 3 or 4 or 5 in the world. I think there's 4 or 5, something like that specifically. But I had a good time playing this. I couldn't recommend it enough to you guys. Oh, one of my other favorite things from the putt-putt games, right? You don't use a golf ball. You use an eyeball. And I didn't realize that until at one point the ball literally looked like it had a black dot on it, and I was like, is that a glitch? No, it's the cornea, and it's looking at you. I think the cornea is the color part of your eye, not the white. Whatever the color part is, like the blue, the gray, the green, the brown, like I have, whatever it is, that part like looked at me through the TV screen. It was weird, but it was a great game. I had a great time playing it. Again, it's a little bit of a sloppy mess on the PlayStation 2. I don't know what the Wii looks like. I know the DS looks worse than this. I don't know about the play feature though. Might be a little bit better. But I recommend the PlayStation 2 version, especially if you're good at games or games like this in general. I had a really fun time with Goosebumps HorrorLand, and like I said, I definitely recommend it to you guys, especially if you enjoy video games, especially if you enjoy PlayStation 2 games. This feels like a lot of PlayStation 2 games I played when I was growing up. Think of Jak and Dexter, think of things like Spyro games when they started putting those on the PlayStation 2 a little bit into the console's lifespan. Crash Bandicoot sequels, you know, they were like this. Very hard to play, and it's hard to go back and get used to the old control scheme. You ever notice that? It's real simple for things like SNES and NES and stuff, but PlayStation 1 and 2, it's real hard to go back and deal with some of the certain delays for gameplay and stuff. But I had a great time playing this. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's definitely good in my opinion. I enjoyed this a lot. Put a big old smile on my face. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Goosebumps HorrorLand for PlayStation 2 or DS or Wii or any of these things? Put your thoughts in comments down below, guys. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Thank you so much for watching. If I had to rate Goosebumps HorrorLand on a 5-star basis, I'd probably give this. As messy as it is, my channel is more focused around, is this a good thing for a Goosebumps fan? Again, if you're fine with gaming, if you're good at gaming, if you're good at games like this, you're able to deal with bad control schemes and able to adapt finally to it, I'd give this a 4 out of 5. I really would. I think it's a cool time. It ain't perfect, like I said, but there's not enough spoken dialogue by actors and actresses to even care about whether it's good or not, you know? Like, it's almost not even there. Kind of like a Mario game. Like, why would you care about the dialogue and stuff because they don't even speak it half the time? Why would you even include that in your rating, you know? But anyway, what are your thoughts on Goosebumps HorrorLand? Put your thoughts down below. I'm sorry for such a lengthy review. I just really wanted to dig into this and talk so much about it. Anyway, thank you guys. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.